We will be live in just a minute. Looking for the YouTube link. We're super excited to get Dr. Tom Giammatteo on. This is going to be super cool. So let me share this with everybody in our group. So here goes. Save. Put this here. We'll put this here. I love my ClickFunnels because it lets me do stuff without a tech person.
I don't even know what you're doing, but it looks easy.
It's pretty easy. Okay, so now that is live. Yep, there we are. Okay. I'm going to share our screen for a minute. So let's see, share screen. We'll have Dr. Tom on in just a little bit. Let me share it straight to that. Yeah, so there's me and Jen and Baden up in the corner. And so this is the show, Miracles, Magic, and Coffee. It's every Wednesday at 10 a.m. And it's an inspiration that Jen and I got a while back, and we started it and we restarted it. And if you are dealing with any kind of chronic or mysterious condition, basically, can you really heal from an autoimmune condition or an anxiety condition or something that's chronic? That's the question. And the show here, this show is all about the answers. And so we're really excited today to have Dr. Tom Giammatteo on in just a minute. And so I'm going to quit sharing my screen. That's a picture of Jen on our honeymoon in Florence, Italy, a long time ago.
We got big.
We got big.
We did.
So we'll have Tom on in just a minute. I'm going to just click this so that I can see. I think I might already have Tom on. Let's see. Nope, that's a 0 yet. So he'll be on in about 15 minutes, 10 minutes maybe. And he's super excited to do this. And so what we're going to do today is I've seen so many people, and when I talk about them and ask them about their history, their medical history, what they've been through, the kind of treatments they've had, and they come to me with all sorts of problems, all sorts of chronic and mysterious illnesses and conditions and stuff. And some have diagnoses and some don't. But one that shows up a lot of the time is Lyme's disease. Like, oh, I got told I had Lyme's disease. I got a diagnosis of Lyme's disease this many years ago. And I went to this doctor, and then I went to this doctor, and then I went to this doctor, and I went to this practitioner, and they've like done stuff. But when I ask them how it's gone over the years, they're still really, really sick. And some even worse than when they first got the diagnosis, even though they're getting all these treatments. And they talk about, oh, well, we have to die off the spirochetes, kill them off. And so what I'm going to do is have Dr. Tom Giammatteo on, and we're going to do a whole series until it's complete of some ways that we've seen that can shift things for people with chronic conditions. And our hope is that you can get some real answers about what true healing is about, and get some real answers for yourself. And so today we're going to be going into the basic premise of this way of thinking about healing, because it's different than most medical ways of thinking about it, and even a lot of alternative complementary medicine ways of thinking about it. So I'm excited to do that for you. My own experience with it, I've told stories about this many times, but I wasn't running for 8 months many years ago, back in 2000. And then I found a practitioner doing this integrative manual therapy, this medical intuitive model that we're going to talk about. And she found a problem in my heart. Very quickly, she found it. And in 2 hours, I was different. And 2 days later, I went back to running after 8 months of not being able to run. And in the course of my years since 2000, I've taken 110 classes, spent lots of money, lots of time all over the United States. And part of it was following Dr. Tom Giammatteo and the late Dr. Sharon Giammatteo, and learning from them, and getting treatments for myself and my family. And along the way, my teeth quit having cavities. And along the way, all my anxiety went away. And the sweaty hand thing that I had went away. And I've seen miracles for clients over and over and over again if they can just get in and get this kind of work done. And now there's ways to do it that we do it at a distance with our distance healing work. but there's a real benefit from also being there in person. And we've had people reach out to us. And so we're going to be opening it up pretty soon where people can come have a whole week of treatment and have a big jump and stay in Bellingham and hang out with us and have food. And we'll figure that part out. So look for that at some point where you can come in and get some integrative manual therapy here in with the rest of what we do, the nutrition and everything else, and the healing work that we do, to have a big shift in a week. And then we're going to tell you about Dr. Tom Giamateo. And if you're on the East Coast, you can see him. And we work together with people and collaborate. And he's helped me with my people, and I've helped him with a lot of stuff too. And so we're super excited to have him on. Anything else you want to say, Jen, before we bring him on? I think I see him.
Yeah, let's see if he's here. Oh, I think that's
There he
Tom.
is. But yeah, let's bring him on. So I can't say enough about Dr. Tom Giamateo. So he started off as a physical therapist, I believe, then a chiropractor, a naturopath. Along the way, he got an acupuncture certification, and he's the co-developer of what's called integrative manual therapy, the medical intuitive model that I studied for many, many years and still study. And we've seen miracles that literally are beyond belief. And so if I told you them, you would probably think that can't be, but we've seen it. And one of the things that I love about IMT, integrative manual therapy, is that if it can happen, it can unhappen, literally. So we're going to talk about Lyme's and get really clear on it, because I even have a lot of questions about it. So let's, anything else you want to say?
No, I'm just excited to hear.
Okay,
what Tom has to
I
say.
think Tom needs to activate his video, because I don't see him.
Okay, let's see what the question is here.
Let me see if I could. Let me promote you. That might be the thing. It's different than the meeting thing. Let's see.
Start video. How about, there we go.
But your side. Oh, let me turn yourself.
Let me
off.
turn you back this way and see if it works now. How's that?
Great, and super excited to have you on. I'm so
Thanks.
so synchronously, because I just thought it. I text messaged Tom, and a minute later I was talking to him, and then a day later we're doing it. Anything else you want to say, Jen?
No, I
Okay.
want to hear from
Yeah.
Tom.
So Tom, can you give us a little, just anything you want to say about your backstory? I've been telling people about you and about the method, and but anything you want to say about how you found your way to having so many medical degrees and developing IMT and your life up to this point?
Well, the word integrative manual therapy came about from going to a bunch of different classes and different styles of body work that both my wife Sharon and I studied independently and differently. And we're always found wanting more or trying to understand more out of each one of the concepts. So we found that there was a lot of miscommunication because people have different words for different items in the body. And that was one of my biggest learnings when I went from physical therapy school into chiropractic school, that there seems to be a big rift between chiropractors and physical therapists. And what I was trained on in the East Coast was never send a client to a chiropractor if you're a physical therapist.
I remember those.
And that was prejudiced and has been proven to be. There were in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, the American Medical Association actually had a committee against quackery, where their main goal was to remove chiropractic off the face of the earth. And in 1992, Wilkes versus the AMA showed that the AMA was an antitrust. So in those 10, 30, 40 years, they put out a lot of bad PR, and they were hiring high-end professionals like Ann Landers and medical doctors they were paying them to have negative ads forecasted out.
Wow.
So when I went to chiropractic school, I was walking in as a physical therapist saying, well, I'll give this a try because some people find it really useful. And what I found was it was just a language barrier. You know, we could say this color is white, and in Italian they say it's blanco. And if you were asked to hold up a white card and somebody asked you what color it was, and they were expecting the white answer or the Blanco answer. If you answer the other way, you're wrong. So that stops some of the prejudice. So I feel that we never give, as any healthcare professional, time to listen to the other side of the story. You know, there are many great healing tools out there, from religious healings to off the body healings to the traditional things that we think of as chiropractic, nutrition, and acupuncture. And we've been also prejudiced by our teachers not to believe anybody else, or those are fallacies. But if somebody's gotten healed by, and like thousands of people have been trained in it, and they find some resource, there has to be something good in that whole process.
Yeah, I remember a major player back in the day, Dr. Stanley Paris, went on a long 20-minute talk in one of our classes how cranial sacral therapy was a bunch of crap. And so as an orthopedic physical therapist, scientifically minded, I didn't do it for years.
Right.
I finally was like, man, I got to know what they're doing, because they're getting better results than what I was getting.
So I believe that prejudice has been out there. And, you know, as a physical therapist that was trained during the same time I was, there was even attitude with other professions, like even occupational therapy, speech therapy. They wouldn't know what we know. And even the medical doctors think everybody has attitude.
Yeah, yeah.
And when you ask everybody why they got into the profession, they say, want to help people. But somewhere along the line, they also got brainwashed. And a lot of people lose the question of, okay, if they don't fit here, then they must have a problem. That, you know, it must be psychological, it must be something weird. They're all weird if they don't fit into my model. And that's sad. And I think the healthcare system of the United States today is in jeopardy of ruining a lot of other people in that whole process. So I love to learn, and no matter where I go, or even somebody's that isn't a healthcare professional and has some information, I like to hear, because I'm going to always learn something new.
Awesome. I'm going to be very interested in finding out in a bit where you're learning from these days. I know you get a lot of stuff from some major inspiration, but that'll be a good, I'm going to just put a little note to ask you that in a bit. That's awesome learning. Thank you.
But just having an open ear of even everybody has a share. So I start my morning off thanking the universe that I'm able to get up in the morning, and every person is brand new. If I always warn myself, if it feels like I already know what I'm doing, then I'm not on my honest game at that point.
That's
Wow,
awesome.
that is,
I'm going to
that
replay
is
that.
such a great attitude.
That's great.
I love it.
So we want to talk about the medical intuitive model that you helped develop, the integrated manual therapy.
Yeah, going back to integrative manual therapy, both my wife and I had different histories, and we got together in 1992, and 96 we got married. However, we were tracking the same questions. What I really learned from a healthcare professional education in the United States is that when you take a healthcare profession, there's a lot of time trying to learn the new language of medicine, all the Latin words, where the bones are, you know, all the anatomy, the physiology, and there's a lot of words that you've never used in that vocabulary. So I feel that most of medical education is 70–80% is learning the vocabulary and learning how the science works behind it. And then the next 10% is how to be politically correct. And then the next 10% is your specialty in that area. So, you know, every healthcare professional, from acupuncturist to chiropractor to podiatrist, all have to know all the names of the bones in the body, right? And so that's a lot of information. So when I went from physical therapy to chiropractic school, they accepted that I was a physical therapist, but they made me take every class again. And in the beginning of that, I thought, okay, they're just money hungry. And I sat in the class, and when I realized I heard it at a different level the second time.
Wow.
So I got to integrate it again. And I had already been out in the field, so I got to have a spinal cord injury patient. I got to see a stroke patient. And what was supposed to be in the book wasn't actually what I got to see. So everybody's an individual. And everybody's healing may take one factor, it may take 20 factors. And sometimes the one factor can heal a good 10% of the population, but sometimes you have to reintegrate that into the whole big picture. And I know your journey, Ralph and Jen, your journeys have been, okay, I got a little better here, but that's not quite it. So what am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? I know I'm not crazy. And we really believe that intuition should be really developed. So what I found out that when you got to a certain area in body work, they would say, well, you just push on this muscle and then the muscles will pulse on you, which we call a therapeutic pulse. And then it's all better. And they walk up and they're healed. But as a group of IMT practitioners, and you learned this very early, Ralph, is we weren't satisfied with what that pulse was. And we started labeling them. We started saying, well, that feels like an artery pulse. That feels like a nerve pulse. That feels like a lymphatic pulse. So we started putting more words on it and we got more refined. So what integrated manual therapy does is it has about 150 different techniques in it. One of them is acupuncture. Another one is a muscle release. Another one is a fascial release. Another one's a lymphatic release. And we learn to play with those tools and we apply them back to the body to help the person have symptoms relieved, right?
Yeah.
So the example of that is somebody that has the label of diabetes. We've known that some people go the medical route and some people have gone to a nutritionist and got better. Some people go to an acupuncturist to get better. Some go to the chiropractor and they get better, and other people do and they don't. So maybe there's a piece of all those that work well in that picture. So if you look up diabetes, it's lack of sugar going into the cells and causing these irritations in the system. In integrated manual therapy, we go, okay, what are the major organs? The pancreas is an organ and the cells are an organ, and are they healthy enough? Did they get enough blood supply? Are they moving in their body cavities the right way? And are they just eating too much sugar? All those are factors. So we try to lay the map so it's really big, and we hear what the story is, and we try to put those important pieces of the puzzle together for the person.
That's
So
awesome.
we never predict what the person has. We always listen to their story, we put it to the side, and then we look at the structure, which is something that a lot of healthcare professionals don't really look at, and see how that impedes in the whole picture. And we also include mind, body, and spiritual connections.
And yeah, so body and spirit. So yeah, so I was always attracted to the way you and Sharon use the science, like, oh, diabetes has a thing with the pancreas and those islets of Langerhans cells and the other cells in the body, but then you use structure to say, okay, where is it not moving and what's not, doesn't have enough space.
Yep.
Where is stuff stuck, and
Yeah.
make it healthier, but also mind, body, spirit structure, and then always looking back to what happens in the physical body, what changes. That's a real
Right. So for a couple of examples, of the pancreas sits right in the middle under the diaphragm, right in your breastbone area here, and most people call that your solar plexus. That's also your third chakra, I believe.
Yeah.
So we've had people get better with diabetes just because they went to yoga and started opening up their chakras the right way.
Wow.
So there has to be something to that weird thing there. And then what nerves come from the spinal cord that activate that? That's from T4 to T8. And if they're not moving, maybe that nerve ending is jammed up. And then how does the blood supply get to it? How does the venous supply drain it? So all those, one little tick the right way could change that person's life forever. And sometimes it's combinations of those things that have to be put together to do that. The American diet is horrible.
Yeah.
The general American diet. We wake up and we're told to eat a Dunkin' Donuts and have a coffee with like 12 sugars in it. And that can strain the pancreas just right there. The amount of food that we've taken in. And I heard you talking about your diet plans and stuff like that. So going back to the old ways of fresh vegetables and fruits is just an amazing tool sometimes too.
That's awesome.
One one of the biggest things I found was in Latin, the word physician means teacher.
Oh,
Whoa.
I like it.
Yeah.
So I was just scanning through some YouTube videos, and a new physical therapist came out and said, I'm a doctor of physical therapy. I think the word doctor in the traditional medical world is I have to fix you. Instead of,
Yeah.
if I'm a physician, I'm here to guide you and educate you on your tools and make you aware of your process instead of fix you. And it has to be a relationship.
Yeah.
If somebody's coming to say, I want this done and I can take a pill to do it, we may not be able to help that person change because they've asked the wrong question, or their expectations are not in our system to help them. So my wife's history was that she was a mother of 3 kids, and they all had various illnesses. And her daughter had some medical issues when she was born, and one of them caused lymphedema, which means she was a very swollen child. And the medical route would be to give diuretics, but she didn't want to do that. So she went to learn a manual therapy called lymphatic drainage. So she studied in Sweden and went to Norway and went to Germany to figure out who were the best lymphatic drainage people, and she did all this out of the heart of not being satisfied with traditional labels and traditional practices. And I came in the other door of going to traditional physical therapy. Then in chiropractic school, I learned about acupuncture and craniosacral work. And I did a 4-year fellowship with Dr. Upledger in Florida, who invented craniosacral work. And we had the experience of being on Clinton's board of alternative medicine. So I got to see 70 other healers come down and offer amazing tools that were off the traditional grid. And there's where I really switched from, okay, I'm supposed to fix you, to I'm here to try to help figure out what's stuck and what's broken.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Right.
That's awesome.
And I feel that when you go the medical route and you get labeled with all these different numbers, it's good and significant, but sometimes the label doesn't allow you to think outside the box.
Yeah. And so do you have a story of maybe having a certain diagnosis before we even talk about Lyme disease, or if you want to talk about Lyme disease, that had a certain label, and but then all this other information gave you a different perspective and how it shifted somebody?
I can even just give you my personal testimony that all through elementary school and high school, I had learning disabilities. I had to go to speech therapy, reading school, and I was considered a low B, CD student in English and writing and things like that. Got to college where I excelled because I didn't have to write a lot. There was lots of bubble tests. My spelling was horrible. My pronunciation was horrible, but I had some teachers that really recognized that I had some learning disabilities, and I knew the knowledge. I just had to have oral reports doing that. But it used to take me a whole hour to read a page of an anatomy book or a physiology book to understand it. And but I still wasn't really good with reading. At that point, I started learning about craniosacral work, and I met my wife, and I was already 33 years old, and met a woman called Yanni Dejan, who had worked with learning disability people, and she was able to see 10,000 of them. So she pegged me and said, here are your 5 problems, let's work on them. And one of them was working with the cranium and the neck, and then re-educating the body system. And now I can read about 40 pages an hour.
Wow, that's a great success.
Right. And my inability to sit still was that I was always in pain. And if I had pain from day one, how can I tell you that I have pain? It was just my normal state of being. So when we eliminate those body pains and discomforts that make kids twitch, sometimes that can reverse. And we had a PhD published where we reversed autism and learning disabilities.
I remember that one. And that's something that seems so out of the realm of what's possible. We'll have to have a whole series on that.
Yeah, there's plenty of different ones to look at, but that's a wonderful series. But in that perspective, we looked at diet, we looked at vaccinations, we looked at structure, we looked at how their stomach's moving, how coordinated they are, how much the electrical fields in their house affected, what was the family dynamics. And each kid had a little proportion of each of them, but some had more of one information than the other. So IMT really hopefully teaches you that you have more tools in your box, or if you don't have the tool, you have a way to explore finding new tools that make it even better.
That's awesome. So with that idea, we're going to just start today and just go as deep as you can with us over the course of time, you know, these different shows, sessions. What do you think of the diagnosis of Lyme's disease? I see it a lot in people. They show up and they say, oh, I have this diagnosis of Lyme's disease.
Yeah. According to the CDC, it's still on the side of a syndrome instead of a real medical issue. And I happen to live in West Hartford, Connecticut. And Lyme, Connecticut was the zero patient that started this disease process. And to this day, probably 60 to 70% of all the physicians in the state of Connecticut don't recognize it as a disease at all. And doctors still roll their eyes at the whole process. So diagnostically, you can go online and discover that there are blood tests and antibody tests to see if you do have the bacteria representing the irritation of Lyme. Okay, but it is in the autoimmune field. So question is, why are so many people getting more sick?
Yeah,
Why are we having an autoimmune issue?
Yeah, is the bacteria something that's all over the place? You know, like E. coli, and with some people get.
Yeah, you can go on Google and type in a map of Lyme disease, and you will see big pockets. But it actually has transcend the whole United States, and it's a worldwide issue nowadays.
But did it?
There are bigger pockets in other areas and things.
But is it something that's the bacteria have been around for a long, long time, but now all of a sudden
causing a problem
more and
that
more
they
people
weren't
have a
before?
problem with it? Or is it like you get this bacteria and you're going to get Lyme disease no matter what kind of thing? Or is it more like it's everywhere and some people get affected?
Well, I feel people that have a very healthy immune system, which is getting rarer and rarer because of the toxicities and pollutions in the world, have less susceptibility of getting influenced by, if they got bit by a tick, they may not get Lyme disease, even if the tick actually had the infection in it. It's like if you had somebody with measles or mumps and you brought them into the room, how many people are going to, in 10 people, probably 3 or 4 won't get that whole process. What happened in that exposure is the question. But I feel that as people's immune systems get stressed, and there's a number of papers that really influence that, the more the possibility is. They did maybe 7 or 8 years ago, they showed that 1 tablespoon of white sugar that you would put in your coffee shuts down your white blood cell system for 20 to 30 minutes at a time.
Wow.
So if that's happening and you're addicted to sugar, you have a suppressed immune system. And then they also showed that white blood cells get affected by computers. So they had put a computer on somebody's lap and they showed the motility of the white blood cells was decreased at that point. So my first question is, it doesn't matter what the disease is, if it's Lyme disease or, there's multiple diseases that have been around for a number of years, but what in that person's immune system was so suppressed that they had to express the whole disease of Lyme.
Yeah.
And why does it take sometimes some people 10 years before, they could have got a Lyme bite and they are perfect for the first 5 years and then they have it, and other people get whacked the minute they have it, and other people, they will have that same test and not show anything for it. So it's how many other cofactors that you have. In studying all these fields of medicine, the osteopaths really had an interesting statement. The statements from the osteopaths were to say that you get 1,000 extra bonus points when you use them all up, then you are having unease or disease. So if you take all your spare points and use them all up, you're going to express fatigue, tired, headache, and all those pieces. So in a structural body work, when we actually diagnose somebody, they may not even know that their arm is sore, their leg is sore. And if we fix that first, maybe that gives them enough energy to heal their gut and other places in the body at the same time. So it's almost like the straw that broke the camel's back. What straw actually broke the camel's back, right? And how do you figure out what that is? So you may have to pick up a few pieces, and then the person has more and more freedom
Yeah.
to do that.
So that's why I know when Jen was pregnant with this guy, you were helping us out a lot, and you told me, oh, here's where the bone bruise is, here's where a disruption in a membrane wall of an organ or vessel, and I would just go fix those things up with, as Sharon used to say, just fix it up, and then she was bedding all the way to the floor, and she had the best pregnancy and birth ever,
Amazing birth, yeah.
But sometimes you'd be saying, oh, it's there's a bone bruise in her bone of her foot, and it's like, well, how does that have a thing to do with having a baby? Or but it's, like you said, you take the stress off of that, and there's more ability to heal, or more bonus points given back or something.
Right. Well, if we the body's connective tissue is amazing, and Ralph, you know, have been training with me that you start off and we teach you how to feel the skin and say, okay, notice that there's a little temperature difference here. Maybe we start to really teach people touch and palpation. But by the end of the training, you can actually grab somebody's ankle and feel all the way up their body, because the fascial connections run all the way up and down the body. So you can't prejudice, you know, if somebody's being pregnant and their body is growing and stretching, maybe that tensile cable was stressed out enough that it pulls on the irritation in the foot. So if you fix the foot, then we go back and have the flexibility. But that's the amazing thing. If you can be humble enough to not prejudice those tools, they all automatically show up. And the difference between what you said is intuitive into a science-based medicine is the understanding of how did the science get you there in the first place, right? So if I know the science, then it's not a magic tool in the air, just like we're talking on the internet now. How amazing is that?
Yeah. The science, like I have no idea how wireless technology works, but I do know how to use it. And
right.
We don't, a lot of times we don't know why it works, the science of it, but we can test and retest and go, well, that actually worked. And then the science may or may not catch up and say, here's how it works.
So even like I feel that the development of integrative manual therapy and the gift that my wife and I were to bring this education forward, I feel that we haven't really discovered a lot of extra things. We have one or two things I think we brought into the world that have never been broached before, but 90% of it, you could find it 6,000-year-old literature from Chinese medicine or Ayurvedic medicine or another person that has had it. If it's a universal concept and people have been around for so many generations, I'm sure they've done it before in a different way. And we're just rediscovering it. And I know that even on your own personal journey, you had to hear it 5 or 10 times and it came up in a different way than you expected. But most of these universal healing techniques are something that's been around for hundreds of years. And so it's an honor and privilege to be witness to seeing how the internet's actually bringing us together and being able to apply those tools of long distance healing, prayer therapy, off the body therapy, even your counseling tools that you help people with can change. All those can change anatomy and physiology, or sometimes you need to change the anatomy and physiology, and then the concept can change at the same time.
Yeah, I know. One of the things that I noticed was how much can change when somebody goes and notices whatever that information is for them that is key to their healing, and somehow things shift. So yeah, it's really amazing. How do you, let's see, I don't know how much we want to like tell them about the method, but
So we started this conversation of maybe looking at Lyme.
Yeah,
Right.
let's hear.
So when somebody presents with Lyme, especially in my office, they've probably gone to 2 or 3 doctors, gotten the test. Traditional medicine says you get a tick bite and then you go on a 1 month to 3 month course of antibiotics. And then if you go to a Lyme specialist doctor and study with them, sometimes people have been on antibiotics for 4 to 5 years of all these different cocktails. But I find that the basics still need to be covered. If you're attacking the Lymes, you're narrowed and you box the person in. But can their immune system work? Are they breathing? Can they pee and poop? It's the next thing, right? So if I feel everybody should make at least 1 good bowel movement a day, and some people come in not doing it every 3 weeks sometimes. So and we need to get the organs, we need to build the house. So I'm always in the area of, you may see a really good clinician and they say, this is your problem. And if you still have the problem 3 or 4 months, maybe you have to go back and rebuild the house a little bit better. It could be heavy metals, it could be Lyme, it could be chronic fatigue, it could be POTS, all these different diagnoses. Because if you had the right little tool, it would have fixed, but maybe you have to go back. So what I mean by building the house is that I need my liver to actually filter all the poisons out. I need my kidneys to also filter all the poisons out. Am I going to a bathroom enough so that all the toxins can go out of my body? And some symptoms of that is, do you have rashes? Do you have allergies? Do you have eczema? Do you have asthma? Do you have PMS? All those are telling me your detox routes are clogged up.
Yeah. So,
and then,
so it's like, even though it's a diagnosis of Lyme's, you don't have to just go think about the bacteria and kill it somehow. You want to look at, like you said, the house, make sure all the organ systems are working well. And you might be working on, I remember I had my father-in-law, Jen's dad, and he saw me for 100 days in a row almost, except for 1 week when we were mad at each other. Then he said, can you work on me again? I'm like, yes, get on the table. But he went from being where he couldn't lay down on, like, he had to lay down on 5 pillows, and he had sleep apnea and snoring, all this chronic pain, and he couldn't pee very well. He was one of those guys that had to stand up and just wait for the peeing. And that got 60% better, and he could lay completely flat, and his sleep apnea went away. And we weren't just working on one thing. So if he had come in with a diagnosis of Lyme's, it might have been all this other stuff needs to shift and build the house, and then his body figures out a way to clear the Lyme's, huh?
Right, yes. So a lot of traditional, a lot of functional medicine or nutritional medicine gives you the diagnosis, and they say, we got to get this out of your body. And again, building the house is 50% of it, because if you have this bacteria called tuberculosis for Lyme, and you're going to kill it, can the liver and the kidneys actually have it be pushed out of the system, right?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, it's going to poison you more. So a lot of people sometimes do something and they get worse. I have a nutrition company where we have over 90 products of herbs, and there are 99% are plant herbs that should be natural food to you. And some people say, well, that one gave me a headache. I said, well, that's okay. It means it's doing something for you. We may need to back it off, because in me, it doesn't give me a headache. So why should it be irritating you? What's wrong in your system that it's not a natural fruit or vegetable for you? And then so we start a little bit lower, or we have to maybe get their liver enough so the poisons move out of the system. So reactions do happen, but it's a sign that there's also healing with it at the same time. So when you have somebody with Lyme, it's interesting to discover what are the actual bugs that are there. But then you really have to take the criticism and thought process that I feel integrated manual therapy applies, is to say, are you ready to get that poison out of your body, or am I going to hurt you more at the same time?
Yeah, I know you've slowed this down a little bit with the idea of detox for some people, because you didn't feel they were strong enough to eliminate it before doing a big detox.
Right. So a lot of people that are going on the internet and finding a detox that work for one, you have a lot of internet YouTubers out there that this helped me get better. So let me share it with you. And 20% will definitely improve and that will heal them. But the other 80%, some will get worse, some will not feel it. It's not that the system's wrong, but it may not be the right system that they touched in the right order for that person.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Somebody dealing with, say, Lyme's disease and for a long time and seen certain people or in certain methods of treatment, if it's working well, should they feel better and better every week, every month? Is there, I see so many that seem that after years of getting treatment, they keep with the same treatment saying, oh, it's the die-off and I just have to get through this thing, but it's been years and they seem to be worse. What would you say about like the kind of results you should get with this model that you're seeing to indicate that you're on the right course?
I feel when I teach my students and myself, Ralph, I would like to see people saying, I'm getting better and better each time I see you.
Every
So
day.
about every 3 months, I ask somebody, do you feel that you want to continue to see me? Did we get a little bit better? Some problems with some people that have been doing chronic Lyme treatments is that they've used antibiotics and they get a certain state of being healthy. And if they reduce that antibiotic at that point, they're going to feel sicker, right? So my question is, how do I get their immune system up while they're on the antibiotics, repair them and heal them, and then we take them off the antibiotics?
So let them keep,
right.
Yeah. So if they're in a system that's month after month after month after month, they're feeling no better or worse.
And then they don't have the quality of life. I would say I would ask to seek some more care. Different care.
That's what I would too. I see a lot of that.
And I have some people that even see me that choose not to, well, I don't feel any better. Then it's like, okay, maybe this isn't the right approach for you at this time. Right. So there's a subset of people that don't want to do the structural work where, all right, can't lose the pieces that they have or don't want to do, well, I can't give up my sugar. I can't give up my caffeine. And there's an addiction process there that it doesn't make sense to them. And I try to get them stronger and healthier before we change that piece. So yeah, if you've been on Lyme's protocol and antibiotics for a long time, we have to go back and ask the question, do you even have a structure? Or is the Lyme just tore you up so bad that it's winning as soon as you knock off the antibiotics? It just jumps. And the same thing happens with people that have candida and yeast issues. They say, if I stay off the sugar, I'm healthy. Well, you're just starving the candida. You're not really addressing that whole process. And with a structural approach, which means that you look at the anatomy to make sure it's functioning as well as everything else. If the brain and the nervous system can't monitor the GI system to see if the candida is there, it can't get rid of it. So with a lot of people with candida, if they're eating lots of sugar, if they stay off the sugar, they're okay. As soon as they have sugar, they get bad. They're just in a starvation mode of keeping the pathogen there. So in IMT, we go back and say, okay, let's get those tissues healthy so that the candida won't want to live there anymore. And then it leaves. Right.
That's cool. So, one thing, so we're going to keep going into more and more with the idea of Lyme and tell stories and stuff over the course of these sessions, and then we'll switch to the next autoimmune condition. That's what my hope is, to get this information out, because one of my goals with this is to get this kind of information and healing message out to people that are looking for an answer that maybe they haven't found an answer yet. Because that's what I found with integrative manual therapy is there's a way to really shift stuff, even if it's been a long time and you haven't been shifted. One of the things that I had, it took me a while. I was up there in Los Angeles seeing Julie Shishino in her clinic. During the early days, I would go every 6 weeks and see her for a few hours of treatment. And I knew from taking the classes, oh, this is why it works. And I know it does work because I test and retest myself before and after, and it's working for my clients. Yet there was still something in me that said, this is crazy. She's barely touching me. Sometimes she's not even touching me. And I'm paying her good money for this. And I did feel better. Every time I would drive back to San Diego, I felt better. But there was something in my mind that was like, how is this working? Can you, if somebody watched you work, it might look kind of funny. Like, it doesn't look like he's doing a lot of stuff. Can you just tell a little bit about the method and how you could possibly change something in a liver or a lymphatic structure, or help somebody eliminate something with touch or with energy work or whatever, however you want to describe it?
Well, there's a whole therapy out there, and there's many people trying to teach a term called myofascial release. And it can be done very hard, which means people will actually use metal tools and actually scrape down the tissues. And another term for that is Wolfing or Gronstedt technique, or friction massage. And then you can go to the other side of it and use 5 grams, which is about the weight of the nickel. And that's where I feel that IMT is going at. So you can actually put your hands on, and after you train with us, you actually have a whole story going on. It's like there's a big universe under your hand, and there's lots of movement, but the perception to the client or the perception out there just seems like we're laying a hand on and everything changes. But there is physiological and scientific data that we are gathering that if we move it gently, the body will respond more efficiently than trying to force it into an area, right? So we do a very light touch, and 90% of our touches are very light, and it's not a painful technique. But there is movement, there is style in that process. You have other therapies like Reiki and aura healing that people have these significant physiological changes with also that are even off the body. So there are alternative sciences that can show you these fields of energy that can be even 10 feet away. And the Noetic Society, which is an alternative medicine society, even has papers proving prayer therapy helps in those pieces. But each class in the science that you know personally, Ralph, is that we actually teach the physiological function of what the muscle's doing versus the ligament and everything else. And it's very scientifically explained, but it doesn't have to be at a very hard touch to do that whole process. But on the outside or to the person, it may not look like we're doing anything.
And that's
right?
why
And just laying of hands sometimes. But under my hand, I have this whole world moving, and I am doing light, gentle manipulations of the tissues. And it's found that if you do it lightly, the body can change. If you do it aggressively, the body is forced into that position. So, and in the fields of chiropractic and in the fields of acupuncture, there are people that do very light touch, and there are people that do the forceful touch where it almost feels like they're cracking the bones.
Yeah.
So,
That's
it's a method of light touch therapies, but there is movement, there is practicality to it. And what I teach to an integrative manual therapist student of mine is that every time you do something, you should stand the person up so they can actually see a big picture movement of that. And some students forget to do that. It takes time out of their session, but it really shows the client that they felt better, and you can get to see the results each time.
I think
so. Yep.
That's what happened with me. The very first class I ever took was the men's and women's health issues class in San Diego. It was raining very hard, and you guys were like, "What happened to San Diego weather?" The roof was leaking, I remember, and it was really cold. But we always tested our range of motion and how we moved, and then we would do these techniques that we were barely learning right at the time, and then we would retest. And I was definitely way better. And that week, I was way better with my running. And and then it's funny, I went to a visceral manipulation class that is also light touch, but more direct in trying to like force something or make something happen. The very next week in Albuquerque, and all that wonderful feeling of running went away. It was kind of funny. So it sold me. So I think testing for yourself and then having this done and then retesting and seeing, well, what's different, even if you can't explain it, if you're better, it's a really cool bit of information to see.
I describe to clients and therapists, if I can see the body move better, I know we've done an appropriate correction.
I think that's
And
good.
when I teach beginner classes, I have people work in groups of 3. So one person's the observer, one person gets the treatment, and one person gets to do the treatment. And then you rotate through. So some of the people after they get treated said, I don't feel any different. But the 2 people watching them says, well, you just moved 10 inches more.
Yeah.
So that tells me that person's not even in their body even to perceive themselves. So we've been in so much pain. We've been so much denial. We don't even know how to be sitting in ourselves sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Right. So you even have a person bend over and they say, well, I don't really notice that. We even take pictures sometimes now in the office. We say, okay, and we'll take an after picture, say, can you see the difference? And we can measure it. And
Yeah.
the person still doesn't see that as a progress. So
Yeah, it's funny. It's like out of their realm of possibilities or something.
right.
Yeah.
But to get you need to be inside your body. You need to feel. You need to be dimensional. You need to have feeling. You need to know where your body is, and you also need to know what your feelings are, in order not being disease, or a disease process can come up.
Yeah, I videotape my distance sessions that I do over Zoom, and usually I've just been sending them the audio, but I think I might send them the video now, because I always test and retest, and it's a good thing to see it and to feel it. This has been really cool, a good way to start, an awesome way to start with this whole idea, because as we talk about Lyme's and other conditions, it's good to know the framework, like where this method came from, and
Yeah.
what it's based upon. And
Maybe in future sessions we can share a questionnaire that I have that actually asks. It's a functional questionnaire, so it really breaks down your life. Like, how do you feel 10 minutes after you eat? How do you feel 20 minutes after you eat? Because a lot of people don't see that as being important. And we use those questionnaires every 3 or 4 months to say, well, you had a score of 85, which means you're really dysfunctional, and now you have a score of 35.
yeah,
So we actually write it down on paper, because in our too fast world, we don't think of those things.
that's great.
And-
Yeah, we'll offer that in the next, when it's appropriate. That'll be great.
And part of that too, we found that it's awesome when people are embodying so much their more healthy body, their healthier body, that they forget where they've come from. There is an
Right.
awesomeness to that, but there's also a usefulness to realizing how far you've come too. So that sounds like a useful tool for delineating that for someone.
Maybe because that's true too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's being able to be sitting there and honest and say, okay, what do you need? Here's the changes, and to sort of document them down for people.
That's awesome. So as we finish up today, I know you've stayed extra more than you agreed to, so thank you for that. Anything you would tell somebody with Lyme's that maybe has not got over it and has been dealing with it and going to lots of people for a long time, I got some stuff to let them know. We want to really get the word out about this work, and to find a practitioner in your area, and reach out to me and Tom over the phone or email, and we can help guide you. But anything you would want to say to someone that's dealing with a diagnosis of Lyme, what would you, if you were just like in the cafe and somebody said, yeah, I've got this thing, and you sat with them for a while, what would you tell them?
First step I would say is, you're not crazy. You probably have an issue that makes you feel tired and fatigued, and we'll call it Lyme's for now. And are you ready to, what do you need to change in your life to help you feel better?
That's a great one. Yeah.
Okay. If the medicines aren't working, are you ready to take the next step?
Great. That's awesome.
Right. We're here. Yes, you develop these symptoms which make you tired, fatigued, achy joints. How do we help you get better? And it's not in one pill. It's not a,
Yeah, and I gotta say again, you know, you're an acupuncturist, a naturopath, a chiropractor. You develop integrated manual therapy. You even start off as a physical therapist. So you've been looking for a long time.
and still learning every moment.
That's true. Me too. That's awesome. What's we're gonna. I know we're talking, you know, off camera over the last couple of years even, and developing stuff that we're working on. For right now, what's like people can always contact me and I'll direct them to things
Yeah.
and stuff. What would be the best way for them, whether they're, or first if they want to see you live in person, what's the best contact information or way to see you?
My email address is info@imtwellnesscenter.com.
Okay.
The telephone number to my office is 860-561-2286. And we do a free 15-minute consultation just to introduce and see if we could support you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Can people do that over the phone if they're from a faraway place?
Anywhere in the world. Yep.
Great. And then you can direct them to what could be useful for them.
And then we have a directory of students on the website for people in each state. But I'd love to hear the stories and figure out what they're really asking, and then I could be better support for them.
Thank you, Tom.
And some people don't even come to the office. We do nutritional support over the internet and things like that.
That's great. Yeah, my work is mostly over the internet now. So, and I'll leave my contact information in the description, all that. And you're probably on my email list if you're watching. So, cool. Well, I'm looking forward to continuing our talk and getting this information out, because it's so it's literally saved my life, saved my family's life, different people that I see, and so I want to thank you and I appreciate you and much gratitude and so happy to know you.
Yep. And with hopefully your help and Jen's help, we'll get the structure better so we can touch more people in a more efficient way.
Awesome. And practitioners learning it too.
Yeah.
Well, thank
Because my wife used to say there's too many sick people and there's not enough time for everybody to come to the office.
I know. That was
So, right, we have many tools that are useful and helpful, and maybe you'll help me set up the webinars on those to start getting out the neurofascial processing techniques and the self-help
We haven't
techniques.
even talked about that part yet. There's lots of home program that you can do. So we'll talk about that in one episode for sure, because there's a lot of ways to get help working on yourself, seeing a practitioner, doing it at a distance, learning it and being a practitioner yourself. So there's people that have went in the door to help their kids and then became practitioners, and now they have a whole new life because of it.
Right. Many people get a new profession, and the sciences of integrative manual therapy and the Connecticut School of Integrative Manual Therapy has a veterinary program, has a plant-based program, actually how you can help your plants get better. Yeah. So
that's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah. And I've got so many ideas swirling in my head. Stories out about integrative manual therapy and the origin of it, and Sharon and just everything. So we'll continue. We'll keep on going until we don't keep on going.
Great. Well, I hope you guys have a good week, and we'll talk next week.
Yes. Thank you, Tom. Thanks a lot, man.
Okay. Have a great day.
Have a great one.